Welcome into our post-game show here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score in Kansas City. A real tough one. A tough ending for the Padres here today. Royals 4 and the Padres 3 as the Royals score 3 runs in the span of 4 batters in the bottom half of the 9th inning against Yuki Matsui. And they come back to stun the Padres in this series finale by that final score of 4-3. With the defeat, Padres dropped to 32 30 on the year. Royals improved to 36-25. Lot to do on our post-game coverage. Sam Levitt with you here inside our San Diego studios. We'll go back to Kansas City, hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt, the radio highlights, and much, much more to come. But first, let's talk about this game. Some initial thoughts for you, and I'll start with the wider lens positive out of this series, right? Before we dive into what happened in the 9th inning and how the early part of this series affected the final inning of this series. The positive is this, and I'm going to start with the positive. The Padres did win the series. They've now won 8 out of their last 10 series. They did it on the road against a really good Royals team, even though the Royals didn't really look like it the first 2 games of the series. That's a good team in Kansas City this year. They take 2 out of 3. If you look at what the Padres have done their last 30 games, they're 18-12, even after today. So you zoom out a little bit. They end this series 2 games above 500. You head to Anaheim against the struggling Angels team, and we'll see if the Padres can keep on winning series. So that is the overall positive from this weekend in Kansas City. I wanted to start with that. But if you listen to the pregame in our What to Watch For segment, and I beg you to listen to the pregame, we give out a lot of good info and we talk about a lot of very, very specific things in regards to that day's game. I told you the Padres would need to find a different way through the final few innings with their bullpen in a close game. Robert Suarez pitched the last 2 days. Jeremiah Estrada pitched the last 2 days. Wandy Peralta pitched the last 2 days. You figure that those 3 guys, there was a high likelihood they would be unavailable in this ball game here today. So the Padres did indeed face that situation, a close game. They take the lead, 3-1, 2-run 8th inning. They have a 3-1 lead heading to the bottom half of the 8th inning. And then it is, of course, Enyel De Los Santos, who ends up getting through the bottom of the 8th inning. Good job by him. Gets us to the 9th inning. And I had absolutely no problem here today with the Padres not using Suarez, Estrada, or Peralta. Look, that's baseball. And those guys can't pitch every single day. We knew this coming in. So they go to Yuki Matsui, who you felt like, despite some of the ups and downs of Matsui's season so far, you felt like he was the guy for that spot, especially with 2 left-handed batters due up in the first 3 batters of that inning. And look, bottom line, it didn't go well at all. It just did not. It went really, really poorly. Game was over in 4 batters in the bottom half of the 9th inning when the Padres had a 2-run lead. Pasquantino, leadoff single. Then really the plate appearance that hurt Matsui. He walked Salvador Perez, 2-run triple to the pinch hitter Nelson Velasquez to tie the game, and a sac fly wins the game. Just like that, game over. Royals win 4-3. So this was a day where we knew the Padres would have to get through the end of this game differently, and they couldn't do it. Bottom line, they couldn't do it. Yuki Matsui could not get through that 9th inning. Did not go well whatsoever. He blows the save, and the Royals take the final game of this series. So that's the bottom line, is the Padres, we knew would have to do it differently today, and the back end of their bullpen today with that different combination of De Los Santos and then Matsui. Nothing on De Los Santos today, but Matsui could not get the job done in that 9th inning. And it's a good reminder of everything in a series matters, and everything in a game matters. And why do I say that? Well, I say that because if you remember Friday night, the Padres had an 11-3 lead on Friday night heading to the bottom half of the 9th inning. Stephen Kolek then proceeded to really not do well at all in that 9th inning. It got so dire in the 9th inning on Friday night that the tying run was on deck. The Padres had to go get Robert Suarez and bring him in what was a save situation to shut the door in that game. And look, at the time, it was absolutely the right move. You can't risk losing that game. You've got to get Suarez in. But the bottom line is this. That meant that Robert Suarez had to pitch the first 2 games of this series. And if Kolek is able to get through that inning on Friday without the necessity to use Robert Suarez in what was an 11-3 game at the start of the bottom of the 9th inning on Friday night, well, guess what? We're probably talking about a Padres win here today, because that means Suarez is available. Your shutdown closer is available for the 9th inning today. So it is a good reminder that every little bit matters, that everybody on a team doing their job on that particular night, it matters. We got reminded of it today. Guess what? Even though the Royals didn't win that game on Friday night, the fact that they rallied the way they did in that 9th inning, there is a direct correlation to that rally in the 9th inning and a losing effort on Friday night and to this win here today for Kansas City. Direct correlation to it. So, look, is it the end of the world? No. Padres took 2 out of 3. You take it, you keep moving. But with that said, the Padres, again, unable to sweep a series. And even though we zoom out and you look at the last 30 games, they're 18-12. They've won 8 of 10 series. This is a very similar conversation, it feels, to like what we had on Wednesday after the game against Miami, as the Padres couldn't sweep that series. It feels like an identical conclusion almost in this sense. They're playing good baseball. They're winning series. That is great. But you do want to see them, and today was a little bit different because of the way it had to happen late in the game with those guys, Suarez, Estrada, Peralta, unavailable. But, man, you would love to see this team put their foot down at the end of a series like this. Go grab a sweep, because you're going to need to do that over the course of the next 100 games. You're just going to have to. So, again, you feel like, all right, they took 2 steps forward in this series, but they did sort of take 1 step back. Now, the result of this game and what happened late, that is part of the story today. Another big part of the story is Luis Arraez coming out with an injury after he dove headfirst into second base after an RBI hit in the 5th inning, stayed in to play defense in the bottom half of the 5th inning. Then he was taken out before the bottom half of the 6th began. So it appeared he injured his arm, his shoulder. I'm not quite sure what exactly the issue was, but it looked like he got banged up on that slide, and then he came out. So we're going to hear the update from Mike Schilt, I'm sure. When we get that audio, we'll play it for you right away. We'll let you know what the update is on Luis Arraez, and certainly you hope that Arraez is okay. And if there is any kind of issue, it's an issue that is something relatively minimal, and something that if he has to miss any time is a couple of days and not a couple of weeks, right? So we're getting ahead of ourselves because we don't know what the situation is with Arraez, what exactly he injured on that headfirst dive in the 5th inning into second base, but it was significant enough that he did come out of the game. And my goodness, the Padres, you feel like cannot afford to lose Luis Arraez for much amount of time at all. So we'll provide the update when we get it. Another aspect of this game before we go to break, Michael King, great in this game, 7 innings, 1 run given up. So that's another disappointing part of this game. The Padres got a really nice outing for Michael King. Ultimately don't win the game. And really other than that, other than the Padres offense not being nearly, I guess, as explosive as they were on Friday and Saturday, you do like what they did in the 8th inning, stringing 4 hits together. Another good example of when they're at their best, what they do offensively. We saw it in that 8th inning. And look, you're going to have games like this where the offense doesn't go out and score 7 runs like they did yesterday or 11 runs like they did Friday. Sometimes you're going to have games where you score 3 runs and you score too late to break a 1-1 tie, and you got to find a way to hold on. And I thought Jesse and Tony made a good point towards the end of the broadcast. Look, to sweep a series, very often you may be without a key guy or 2 in the back end of your bullpen. That's reality. So you need somebody like Yuki Matsui to step forward in a spot like that and get the job done. And he couldn't get the job done here today, and that's why it's frustrating for the Padres, as they do take 2 out of 3. But man, they were 3 outs away from a series sweep in Kansas City. Final score, Royals 4, Padres 3. When we come back, we'll have the radio highlights for you again. We'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt coming up in just a little bit. In fact, when we come back, let's get right to the Mike Shildt audio because I do want to get to this update on Luis Arraez. So when we come back, we'll hear from Mike Shildt. Much more to come after this on the Padres Radio Network.